Hey everybody, I'm Mike Contant. We've done a number of videos about drunk driving cases, what we think you should do, what you shouldn't do if you've been arrested for drunk driving. In particular with regard to the breathalyzer test, it's always been our opinion that you should always refuse to take a breathalyzer test. And the reason for this is twofold. First, it provides the prosecution a very powerful piece of scientific evidence that they can use against you at trial. And second, it's our belief that the science behind the machine, as well as the manner in which they've been maintained and calibrated by the state's Office of Alcohol Testing, is flawed. So what you're doing is giving the prosecution this powerful piece of scientific evidence that's flawed. So again, still our opinion, you should always refuse to take this test. It's going to make your case much better when it comes time to go to trial on that case. That said, I recently had a client come to me and ask the question. He said, "Hey Mike, isn't it true if I do as you're saying and refuse to take a breathalyzer test, isn't it true I'm going to lose my license for a certain period of time?" And unfortunately, the answer to that question is yes. And that's under something called the Implied Consent Law. Under that law, just by driving on the roads of Massachusetts, you've consented to take a breath test, like a breathalyzer, or a blood test if you're ever arrested for drunk driving. Now, the reason behind this law was to convince and encourage people to take that breathalyzer test and provide evidence against themselves at a trial for a drunk driving case. In order to do so, they made the penalties pretty stiff. For a first offender, for instance, for a first offender drunk driver who's over the age of 21, if you've been arrested for drunk driving and you refuse to take the breathalyzer test, you're going to lose your license for 180 days. Now, the penalties get stiffer if you've had more than one offense, or if you're a juvenile, the penalties are just that much stiffer. So consider this. You're an average person who needs your license to get to and from work, to get your kids places. It's a pretty big encouragement, pretty big convincer to get you to take that breathalyzer test to say, hey, just by not taking this test, you're going to lose your license for 180 days. Now, this implied consent law has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. This isn't a judge making the decision. No one's decided that you actually were driving drunk. It's just because you said, I'm not going to take this test. All right. Now, the flip side of that, and again, that was the stick and this is the carrot. If you do take the test and you do fail the test and blow above a 0.08 or above, they're still going to take your license, but it's for a much shorter period of time. Using that same example, a person over the age of 21 who takes a breathalyzer test, blows a 0.08 or above, they're only going to lose their license for 30 days or until the case is over. So it's a pretty big incentive for you to go ahead and take that test and provide that evidence against yourself. Now, we still think it's a bad idea, but we also wanted to make sure that people were informed of both sides of the equation and they had the full information available to them when making that decision. So if you have any questions about this, about the implied consent law or drunk driving, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, or leave a comment below the video. I'll be happy to speak to you about it.